Back in 2016, I tried acupuncture to treat my Crohn's disease, and there's a lot of information out there about it to treat not just Crohn's, but colitis, any kind of inflammatory bowel disease, just digestive issues, among lots of other things, but specifically pertaining to my condition. And actually, my main motivation was because I was having some really severe joint pain, which is not uncommon with the illness. However, I had never experienced any major problems until then. I was going to be going to Orlando at that time and for some conferences, and I just woke up one day and like I couldn't walk. My feet were all swollen, um, and I couldn't walk without assistance. I had to use crutches for a little while, and then I was able to downgrade to a cane. But I was debating canceling this upcoming trip. This was about maybe 2 months, month and a half or so before the trip when I started having these problems. And I really don't know what caused it. The only thing that my doctor could think of, and it makes sense, and it was kind of a gradual thing, is at the time I was coaching basketball and it just having to wear the dress shoes, the very uncomfortable dress shoes, a couple times a week. That just coupled with the disease itself, and then it was never officially confirmed, but I think I was going through a mild flare at the time as well, which just all of those things combined just kind of made this perfect storm, and just really took a toll on, well, mainly like my ankles and my feet, but a little bit of my knees in general. And yeah, as I said, I just woke up one morning, I could barely walk. I had to kind of like hold onto the wall down the hallway, like to get from room to room. And I looked into acupuncture. I forget how I first got onto that. I know that I was aware of it for treating Crohn's, but I think it was just I didn't have like the motivation to try it because at the time the things that I'd been doing primarily just through my diet were doing enough that I didn't feel like I needed anything more. Like I was pretty healthy. I was able to do a lot, and yeah, I just never looked into it that seriously. But for those that aren't familiar, just like my very, very simple, basic explanation of acupuncture is it's based on like ancient Chinese medicine, that there's like a flow of energy that goes through the body, and like disruptions or blockages, backups, or whatever you want to call it. In this energy flow is what leads to diseases and various ailments. And there's different ways like to stimulate the tissue and kind of get that energy flowing again. There's a lot more information out there on it and better explanations, but that's basically just very simple terms, kind of what it's based on. And it's similar. There are different kinds, but the kind that I had and what I pictured when I looked into it was the needles. I'm sure you're all familiar with just the poking needles in the skin, and that kind of works similarly to like a massage if you have like knots and soreness, tightness in the muscles and connective tissue, and myofascial release as well, like using a foam roller or some sort of like a personal like handheld massage device or something like that to break up the tissue. So it gets that energy flowing again and gets the blood flowing to like these localized areas, and that's pretty much how it works. So I signed up, or I made an appointment. My insurance at the time only covered a location that was like, depending on traffic, like 40 minutes to an hour away. And there was one right around the corner in walking distance that I had to pay out of pocket. But considering all of the hassle of the other one, that one made the most sense. So I went there. And I really didn't know what to expect. I was a little bit skeptical just because I didn't think it. I didn't have any great success with anything, up to that point. But I figured, it's not going to make me hurt anymore. It's at least worth kind of seeing through. And I was a little bit curious, so just to see, what does it feel like? What's it going to be like? So I went to an appointment, and I met with the acupuncturist, and she was just this really, really small, older Chinese woman. And it's really cool. first thing she asks you is to look at your tongue, and you stick your tongue out, and it's like there's kind of like different lines, and um, I'm not sure what to call them, but kind of like boundaries or sections where the tongue is kind of certain areas by just the way they look at it. They can read they're related to certain parts of the body, and kind of like right in the like kind of middle to back of the top of the tongue is like the stomach and the intestines and the spleen and a lot of like the digestive organs in there. And she asked me to look at my tongue. I was like, okay, whatever. So my mouth, stick my tongue out, and she's looking at it, and she says, "You're really tired," and she says, "You have no energy." And I'm like, yeah, that's definitely true. And she's saying, your body is just not. I forget the term she used, but it had something to do with like your blood and your blood cells, like essentially diagnosing me as anemic. And she's, it says like, your body's not producing blood, or it's not getting blood to where it needs to go. And she says, you're not digesting your food properly. And, she's basically naming a lot of the symptoms that have to do with inflammatory bowel disease. And she just kind of looks at me confused. She goes, "What's wrong?" And by then I was just kind of, wow, I don't know how they do this, but she pretty much just nailed it. So I told her, that I have Crohn's disease, inflammatory bowel disease, and she's kind of like, okay, that makes sense. So she takes me back into this room, and you kind of lay down, and you just have to wear comfortable clothing. Like they don't like fully strip you down or anything like that. But I was just wearing like a t-shirt and shorts, and they take your socks off, and I don't know. I didn't know a lot about it, so I just assumed. Because I went in there for the joint pain in my lower body, so I just assumed that pretty much the needles were going to go where it hurts. That's just what I thought, and it made sense. So I'm laying there, and she's kind of looking around, and she puts a couple kind of my feet kind of on the side of my foot, like just outside of my little toe. A few more kind of like right at the ankle, a few around my knees, and not a whole lot. And she kind of moves up, puts a few near my belly button and kind of on my stomach. She kind of goes up and down the arms, puts a few in my hand. And it was really weird because they don't hurt. You definitely can feel them. Like there's a sharpness to it. But if you tried to move, like it would hurt. Like if I tried to move my hand at all, or like check my phone or anything during then, it would kind of hurt a little bit. So I just tried to stay as still as possible. And she starts putting them. I had short hair at the time. She starts putting them in my head, and I didn't know what to think because I've never experienced it before, and it was it was just really odd. And I just thought they were all going to go. Like I pictured just like my feet and knees just kind of looking like the mask from Hellraiser, but my lower body, because that's where everything hurt. So I didn't know why all these were going like on my head and everything, and she's kind of looking around trying to figure out where to put it, and she kind of locks right between my eyes, and I'm just like, dude, don't put one right right in the middle of my face, and she's kind of looking around, and I see her kind of thinking about it. I'm like, dude, don't put one right in the middle of my face. And she sure enough, she just plucks like right in the middle, right between my eyes, and it just everything released. Like I felt like I was floating, and you're just kind of like in this other like parallel world or something. I don't know how to explain it, but it just kind of unlocked everything, and it was just so relaxing. Like I couldn't really feel anything, and that was the last one she put in. And you just kind of doze off during that process. And I'm not sure how long a typical session lasts. I think the longest I was ever there was for about like 2.5 hours, but usually I think she would leave me for like an hour and a half, give or take, and you just lay there. I usually would kind of doze off. She puts on some music as well, and it's extremely relaxing. And that first 2 times or so, and she also gave me some kind of I'm not really sure what you would call it, but it's similar to a bandage that you would just put. She put on my feet, and I forget how long I was supposed to leave that on for, or even what it was exactly. But the first 2 or 3 times I went in, she gave me those at the end to take home as well. And I think I went through 2 sessions before I had to go to those conferences. And as I mentioned, I was able to downgrade to a cane at least. So I could carry my bags, in one hand. And that was one of the few times where having an invisible illness kind of bothered me, because going through the airport, I did opt to have somebody push me in a wheelchair, because it would have taken so long to get from point A to point B. And I mean, I would have done it, but it was more of a time thing rather than an ability, to do it. Because I mean, I had to walk so slowly, and plus with all those bags. And that was, like I said, the only time really where, like, I just got a lot of dirty looks in the airport, because, I mean, here's this healthy looking, youngish guy with, like, usually somebody who looks less healthy than them pushing them around in a wheelchair, for the most part. And that was, like, so one of the few times where I was actually kind of self-conscious of, having an invisible illness. And even though, I mean, I had my cane there too, but still, people can't see anything wrong with you, and they just see this person being wheeled around, and, again, just kind of give you dirty looks for whatever reason. But anyway, I made it to Orlando, and everything, was okay, and I didn't feel any, like, major improvements or results from the acupuncture yet. But I'd only been to it twice. But I think I forget if it was the second or third night that I was there out of, I think, 5. But I don't know if you've ever had, like, a sprained ankle or injured foot or something like that. And it's like you might get up to use the restroom during the night, or even just getting up first thing in the morning. And it's like your conscious thought isn't on your injury. And it's like you might just step out and, you forget that you're hurt. Or the other way around, like, as it's been healing, you just realize, like, wow, I feel better. Well, it's like I got up to use the restroom, and I took like 3 or 4 steps, and then immediately I thought, oh, my cane, And then I was like, wait, I don't need my cane. I feel good. And I looked down at my feet, and it's like for the first time I could see veins, and they weren't swollen. So it's like after that, and this was maybe 5 or 6 days after the second session I'd been to, and it was just like, literally the term overnight. They just instantly got better. And just to walk around a room, like, I didn't need a cane anymore. For long distances, like, for example, from the parking lot into the hotel where they were having the conferences, I definitely needed a cane, just like to walk those long distances. But I definitely didn't have to have it completely to walk anymore. So that pretty much sold me for sure, that it was working. And I think I did it for probably like 4 or 5 months. The first few months I did it every other week, and then to kind of like stretch my dollar as I started to feel better, I think I did it like once every like 6 weeks or so, just kind of whenever I could fit it in there, just to kind of supplement. I definitely think, if insurance covered it and I was able to do it more frequently, I would have seen even better and faster results. But I saw good results that obviously I was willing to pay for anyway. And it was just such a unique feeling. There are a couple other times, the way that I could describe it, especially with my knee, a few times, like right below the knee, she'd stick a needle. And it's like right when she'd put it in there, not quite the same way as like if you hit your funny bone, but a similar feeling where like just you kind of get this numbness or weightlessness where you can't even feel like the lower extremity. It was either that, or a couple times as well when she would do that, it would feel like somebody was pouring hot water. Like, I don't know if you've ever taken a bath or a shower, but you get the temperature just right where it's hot, where you almost can't feel, your limb or wherever the water is touching, but it's not so hot that it, burns you, or you have to like pull your hand away or your foot out of the water really quickly. It's just this relaxing weightlessness feeling. And then, of course, just laying there, I tried not to move as little as possible. And, having that music going, more often than not, I would kind of doze off, for about, I said 45 minutes to an hour. Then I'd maybe lay there for another 30 minutes, 60 minutes, or, you're not really conscious of time that much. And, it was a good experience. I definitely would recommend you try it, whether it's dealing with fatigue, actual, symptoms like urgency, having to go more often, cramps, aches, that sort of thing, or joint pain as well, obviously, because that's what I went for, and it helped a lot. And then from then on, like once I could walk again and start to do normal things, it's just gotten better and better and better from there. And my left side in particular was hit harder, so I've had a lot of atrophy, and even now, like my left side is weaker. So like if you ever see any of my videos or posts on Instagram, about my gimpy knee. Like I still have to be careful when I do lower body exercises. Like there reaches a point that if I try to go too heavy and or too deep, like with squats or certain leg exercises, I can feel the left side kind of give out a little bit because it just doesn't quite have that strength and confidence to, to bear like equal load as the right side. So I'm always kind of experimenting with what's an appropriate weight increase compared to like a depth increase in the range of motion, or just doing more reps or going more for endurance, and then as well as unilateral exercises, of course. But it's gotten way better since then. I mean, just pretty much like just in a linear fashion, and just I would, if that's something you've never explored, and don't have things completely under control or have things completely not in control and just want to try something different, I would look into seeing if your insurance covers it or just what kind of options you have. It's certainly not going to make you worse. So my experience was a good one, and this is one that I would consider it kind of along my lines of like medication history and treatment, although it's not truly a medication, and I didn't really go with like a consistent routine. It just, like I said, not by week. I think I said bi-weekly earlier. I meant bi-monthly. So like every other week, I would go, and then I think I did that for like 2 to 3 months, and then the rest of the time it was just sort of when I could, like so maybe 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whenever it was, and then over time, once the joint pain went away, or primarily, I'd stopped, and then eventually in that time, I did obviously opt to have surgery, so it wasn't as much of a thing. But just for that overall, like, it's similar to relaxation. I don't get massages. I don't like people touching me, but I would imagine it's a very similar relaxation, and not just mentally, but like just for the body and for the joints and the connective tissue and everything. So if it were ever, I decided that I needed to, or just kind of had the extra income or desire to do it, it's something I would definitely get on a regular basis, even if it was just like monthly or something. I would be willing to do it again because it just, was a good experience. I just wanted to make this video. That was kind of a separate one that kind of coincided with probably when I was on Entyvio during that period. And I feel like acupuncture was not like something that I did isolated just on its own. Like that was the one treatment I had. Plus mine, as I'd mentioned, was specifically for the joint pain. It was like the primary thing I was looking to heal or to fix. But again, if you're struggling or just looking to kind of see some improvement, I would try it. Hopefully that was helpful to you. It certainly helped me. If you've read about it but don't know anyone that's ever had any personal experience with it, hopefully now you do, and that might motivate you to get out and give it a try, and hopefully it works for you. And I'll see you on the next video.